stopped at a light and saw him walking in that field behind the Lost River Drive-In. Julie said he was so creepy.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day you happen to be watching this. Hello, it's Nick from the Lost River Drive-In, and we're back here again to do another tier list. I've listened to you guys. Look, one of the most important things I think as a content creator that you can do is listen to the feedback you're getting from your audience. And you guys have been loving these tier lists, and you've wanted more. Many of you have given me ideas. Hey, do this franchise, do this one, do that. So I thought, okay, let's take a couple that I've gotten so far and put them into one video. So today we're going to do tier lists for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Hellraiser. I don't want it to just be TCM because that's only 9 movies, I think. So that wouldn't be very meaty. I want to give you guys more. So we're going to do both franchises here. And we're going to start off with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And let me get into here now, and I will show you guys how I have this set up. So there are 5 tiers. We have the Saw is Legendary. Obviously a play on the Saw is Family. That obviously means that it's incredible. We've got Sharp as a Blade, which of course also means pretty damn good. Not quite perfect, but pretty damn good. Silent but Deadly. Most of you would think of something else when you read that. That means it doesn't leave as much of a mark as some of these other movies, but it's still good. Running on Fumes means aside from 1 or 2 redeemable qualities, it's nothing to write home about. And a dull hacksaw. Do I even need to explain what that means? So, here we go with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Now, I just want to say, I know there are a lot of people that will maintain that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the greatest horror film ever made. And I'm not here to argue with you. I think that's really up to the person. However, I do think it is in the conversation because it is that good and it is that iconic. So, why not start with the original? We'll just go in order here. And we've got the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Is there any suspense here? It is going into 100% the Saw is Legendary. I mean, as I said at the top here, this is definitely one of the greatest horror films ever made. And I think most people, when you watch this movie for the first time, you're genuinely like a little surprised with how depraved it is. Another thing I love about this movie is that it is such a breezy watch. It's in and out in like an hour and 20 minutes. It doesn't meander. It opens pretty damn great, and it just continues from that point forward. Now, you guys have probably heard me over the years complain about a character like Franklin because I just think Franklin's annoying. But it's got a pretty well likable cast. It's just a great film. Daniel Pearl's cinematography, Tobe Hooper's direction, Gunnar Hansen as Leatherface is legendary. This is how you do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And in my opinion, they've only even come close to replicating it once, maybe twice. And that's it. So then we get to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Let's see here. I'm going to clear my nose really quick. All right, I cleared it. So the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is going into Sharp as a Blade. Now, I say this because, and I know that there's a lot of people that might take a little bit of issue with that, and they don't see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 as anywhere near the original. And I understand that. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is one of those sequels that changes the formula up drastically and is actually a better film because of it. Not better than that previous movie, but a better film overall. Because what that movie does is takes the idea and the tone of the first movie and says, let's try to make it more goofy. Let's make it over the top. Let's make it more cartoonish. And I actually think it works with this movie. I love so many of the characters in this movie. I mean, you've got some horror icons in here. Obviously, Bill Moseley, Caroline Williams. This is one of those movies that, like, if you go into this not knowing the style and the tone of it, and you just watch the first movie, you're probably going to be taken aback. Like, what the hell is this? But if you're aware, I actually think you'll have a really good time with it. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, while not reaching the heights of the original film, it's damn good. But the same cannot be said for the next movie. Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Yeah, there's really no surprises here. It's a dull hacksaw. Look, people will talk about the sick chainsaw in this movie, or Viggo Mortensen, who's pretty good in the movie. I'll give him that. Or Ken Foree, for that matter. And use those as reasons why this movie is better than forgettable. I can't get there. I find this movie to be shoddily made, pretty poorly acted. I hate the look of Leatherface. I don't at all find this movie compelling, scary. It doesn't feel like the first film or the second film. It feels like this weird redheaded stepchild. This is just not at all what I want from a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. It's just not. And most people would have The Next Generation as the last on their list. And they'd be like, this is the worst Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. And while I wouldn't argue with you too much, there's one thing this movie is that movie isn't. And it's boring. And I personally believe the cardinal sin you can make as a film is to bore your audience. And Leatherface does that. So this is going in a dull hacksaw. The next one is, as I previously just mentioned, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation. Now, for years, I did maintain this was the worst one. And a year or so ago, when I went back and rewatched all of these movies, my opinion changed a little bit. The Next Generation is not good. It's just not a good movie. I'm sorry. And I know there's people that'll say, no, it actually is good. You're not getting it. Great. Awesome. Maybe I'm not getting it. I don't think it's good. I think it is over the top, and I think it is batshit, and I think that it does those things really well. But aside from that, it's just not good, like technically speaking. So I'm going to put it in running on fumes, but not a dull hacksaw. And that is because, as I said, this movie is at least entertaining. Matthew McConaughey is insane, like, but he goes for it. Renee Zellweger, she's pretty good. You know, I would have watched more horror movies with her as the final girl. I really would have. Leatherface largely sucks in this movie. The family aspect is not good, aside from McConaughey's character. The lack of kills, the lack of violence in this movie is honestly kind of appalling. It's weird to say that, right? It's appalling that there isn't a lot of that, but that's my opinion. But it's entertaining. You're going to watch this movie and you're going to go, well, at least I feel like I passed the time. You may regret it, but you passed the time. Next up, my pride and joy, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003. Easily going into the Saw is legendary. And I told the story here with this movie, so I'll spare most of you that, especially when we did the horror remakes tier listing. But this is a movie that might be largely responsible for me being a horror fan. Of course, the original Halloween is my favorite horror film ever made. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003, I saw at 9 years old. And I don't have a ton of memories of horror movies at that time, here and there. But this is absolutely one of them. This movie freaked me out. I don't care what anybody says. And furthermore, I just found it to be like really, really entertaining. There was something about it that just piqued my interest. And me and my friends watched this thing over and over and over again. We could not get enough of this movie for good reason. Look, whether you say that you like this better than the original or you think it's better, that's irrelevant. this is a really good remake and one of the best of that entire era. When I think of like the hierarchy of remakes, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from '03 is just on there. It is. Like, there's no debate. So, of course, this is going in the Saw is Legendary. I've said what I needed to say. Okay. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning. Now, in recent years, I've seen there's a lot of people that actually prefer this to the remake. And I guess I can see that. There can be a case made for that. I don't, though. I will put this in no, not silent but deadly. Sharp as a blade. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning, does some things that I actually really did want to see. Some people said we didn't need to see certain things. We didn't need the answer to every question that the remake potentially posed. You didn't need it, but didn't it make that previous movie that much better? Doesn't it make the two of these together such a better watch? I'd say so. I love The Beginning. I put it a tier below the remake because I don't care for the cast as much. It's not to say it's not a good cast, because it's a pretty good cast yet again. They're just not as likable. There's nobody in this movie that's a Jessica Biel for me. And I've actually heard people over the years be like, oh, Jessica Biel is so milquetoast in that remake. And I'm like, I just don't see it. I think she's great. And there's nobody like that in this. Not on her level, I would say. So I'm putting this in sharp as a blade. And I feel like that's fair. And honestly, that's kind of hilarious that the original's in the Saw is Legendary and its remake is in the Saw is Legendary. Part 2 is in sharp as a blade, and the follow-up, though it's a prequel to the remake, is in sharp as a blade. All right. Texas Chainsaw 3D. Man. Where am I going to put this bad boy? Man, I'm struggling here, guys. I really am. I know there are so many fans of this movie, but I got to be real, like, with myself. Oh, God. Silent but Deadly. And I think I'm actually being generous. I was really leaning toward Running on Fumes. But here's my thing with 3D. It's dumb. Like, super dumb. Doesn't make any sense. You don't know when it takes place. If it's supposed to take place when it's supposed to, then the characters' ages don't make sense. But it's really fun. I like Leatherface in this movie. I think there's some great kills. I love Alexandra Daddario and pretty much anything she does. She's just very nice to look at. It's got some bad CGI. It's got some bad, huge continuity errors. Horrible dialogue. The worst lines in this entire franchise are in this movie. But it's really fun. Like, it is really fun. And you get a likable final girl. I'll put it in silent but deadly. I'm feeling generous today. Leatherface from 2017. This actually might be my most surprising, but I'm also putting this in silent but deadly. Why? It's nowhere near as fun as 3D. That's absolutely true. However, the thing about Leatherface from 2017 is I actually think this is a pretty solid movie. Like, all told, I think it's solid. Here's the problem. It's not a very good Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Both of those things can be and are true. You can make a movie in a franchise and go, wow, that was like a really well done movie. Like, I liked the characters, the story was engaging, there's some good effects, but it doesn't feel like it really fits in that franchise. I've heard people make that argument for Halloween 3. And I get it. That's kind of my argument here. I think it's a decent movie. It's just not a good origin story for Leatherface. So I can't dock it too much because it's again, decent movie. I'll put it in silent but deadly. It's definitely not one I find myself rewatching much. And then the last one in the franchise, Texas Chainsaw from 2022. Pretty sure that's what it's called. Or sorry, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This one's going and Running on Fumes. And there was a lot of love for this movie when it came out. And I was honestly kind of shocked because for me, I was like, well, that's just like, I don't know. That it's like a really bad attempt at a Halloween 2018. Like let's do the same kind of story. Let's not at all offer anything new that we haven't seen in the last couple years with a character that really wouldn't be obsessed with Leatherface, quite frankly, and he definitely wouldn't care who she is. It's a different actress too, which makes it really weird. I get it. Marilyn Burns had passed away, so you couldn't do that, but still, it's just weird. I just really find this movie to be one of those movies where you walk away from it going like, who is this for? Because it doesn't feel like a love letter to the fans of the original. It doesn't feel like it's really going to break through with Gen Z or, the new generations. It just kind of feels like pointless. Now, having said that, there's some good kills. I mostly like the look of Leatherface. But like at the end of the day, I walk away from the movie. I think I've watched it 3 times now, and I'm just like, it doesn't really feel like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It doesn't look like Texas. I just don't know who it's for. So I don't know. I'm putting it in running on fumes. Now, some of you guys that are huge haters of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you might be like, holy crap. He only has one movie in A Dull Hacksaw. Yeah, because a lot of people will say that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the worst franchises ever. I don't agree with that. I think there's a lot of middling movies in there, but I don't think there's a lot of truly bottom of the barrel gutter trash. Now, you could make the argument for the next generation going into A Dull Hacksaw, and I'll hear you there, but even then, that's 7 other movies that are at worst, I think, okay. So yeah, maybe this franchise is more consistent than people give it credit for. But now we need to switch on over to Hellraiser. All right, so now we are on to Hellraiser. And here is how I have the tiers. Leviathan, which should be unspoken. Leviathan is the goat, the king of that realm. So naturally, Leviathan is like the best you can be. The Hell Priest, which is a step below Leviathan, though still legendary and amazing in its own right. The First Circle of Hell, which means, it's pretty good. It's better than you think. The Seventh Circle of Hell, which means, it's almost the pits, guys. It's we're getting there. And hell isn't hot enough, which means, that's worse than kill it with fire. Not even killing it with fire can work. So how are we going to do this? Hellraiser, a franchise that I love. I have always loved. I will always defend, but a franchise that is very top heavy nonetheless. The original Hellraiser is going into Leviathan. Is that surprising? I don't think this movie has ever really gotten the love that it deserves, and it's always bothered me because Hellraiser was a movie that I think was really ahead of its time. In the mid to late 80s, you weren't seeing these masochistic, sexy, demonic horror films. Like that just wasn't what you were seeing. You were seeing a lot of slashers. So you've got Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers running around, and then you've got the Cenobites. And look, Clive Barker is a madman. And I say that in the most endearing way possible. His brain and the things that he can create from that brain, just wild. You don't even see Stephen King write stuff like that. Hellraiser is a movie that is super classy. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to say it again. Ashley Lawrence does not get the appreciation and the love that she so deserves for her performance as Kirsty Cotton. She never has, and it's about time she did. Christopher Young's score is incredible. Obviously, Doug Bradley is iconic. Yeah, Leviathan. Does any more need to be said? But then you get to Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. And if you know anything about my channel, you know that this is my favorite Hellraiser film. So, shouldn't be a surprise. This is also going into Leviathan. Look, whether you prefer the original or you prefer Hellbound, I really think it is true that they work really well together. If you watch them back to back, they are like one story. Now, the next film definitely feels a little detached from that, but they're great together. Hellbound, I'll say it like this: Hellraiser walked so Hellbound could run. Hellbound realized this world so much better. There was more money there. Ashley Lawrence was more comfortable in the role. Doug Bradley was more comfortable in the role. It really feels like the world that we had established is finally getting fleshed out. Sure, it's a little over the top at times, but I honestly kind of love that about it. There's this like Mad Hatter energy that just emanates from this movie. Hellbound is one of those movies that I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, I have to see more of this world. Like, I have to know more. I cannot get enough of this. Hellbound is easily my favorite Hellraiser film, and I think absolutely belongs in Leviathan. And nobody can argue with me there. Okay. Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. This is going into the first circle of hell. Now, that's like middle of the road for me, but the first circle of hell, I lean more positive than negative. I'll put it that way. I really like Hellraiser 3. I've always really liked Hellraiser 3. Sure, it definitely feels like a different movie than the first two. Doesn't take itself as seriously. The performances are nowhere near as good. I would say the Cenobites aren't as menacing. They almost come across more like action movie villains in this film. However, some of the most iconic moments in the entire Hellraiser franchise are in Hell on Earth. Doug Bradley gives a great performance. There's some honestly great kills in this movie. I think there's enough of the flavor in this film to make it pretty good. I would never say that Hell on Earth is great. It's not. There's a lot that Hell on Earth lacks that the first two had, but it's still a good time. And if you can get past some of the performances, I think you'll like it. Unless you're like super religious, maybe you won't. There's a scene in there. Yeah, not for the faint of heart. All right, Hellraiser Bloodline. You know, I feel weird when I talk about this movie because I never know how certain people are going to take it. I know Bloodline is not a movie that is widely regarded, where people are like, oh, I just love Bloodline. I can't get enough of Bloodline. No, it's as much as I, enjoy the movie, I know it's not the case. However, that be damned. Bloodline's going into the Hell Priest. I love Hellraiser Bloodline. I think it's better than Hell on Earth. And I think that's because this feels a little bit more in line in tone with the first two movies. I love Angelique. I think she is an incredible addition to this franchise. I honestly bummed we never got more Angelique. Valentina Vargas just, oh yeah, absolutely. She's menacing. She's gorgeous. Furthermore, I think Doug Bradley's really good in this movie. I love the period piece stuff. I think it is awesome. Adam Scott in this is just hilarious to me. I admit the space stuff is not great. The space stuff is the weakest part of this movie. It's only like 15% of this movie, guys. Like, it's not a lot. Everything else, modern day and the period piece stuff, I think is really, really solid. And Bloodline, I would say, was the last like pretty damn good Hellraiser film for a long, long time. So it belongs in the Hell Priest. I'm sorry, it just does. All right. Hellraiser Inferno, here we go. Now I'm going to say before I put this in a tier, I know that this is the movie in this franchise that went straight to DVD that a lot of people love. And they're like, you'll come around to it. There's brilliance in this movie. Scott Derrickson is a savant. Really enjoy the man. I've just never been able to get there with Inferno. However, I don't think it's the pits. So I'll put Inferno in the seventh circle of hell. And the reason being for that is this is the first movie that really did feel like, okay, this isn't really a Hellraiser movie. We're adding Pinhead and the Cenobites in here at the last minute. Now, I know they claim that's not what happened, but it feels that way. Doug Bradley gets hardly any screen time, and I just don't think it really adds up at the end of the day. The inclusion of the Cenobites and of that world into this movie. It's a competent movie. There's some freaky imagery in here. I think it's solidly directed, some good atmosphere. I just don't think it's a very good Hellraiser movie. So that's where I'm at with it. Next up, Hellraiser, Hellseeker. Buddy, hell isn't hot enough for this flaming pile of dog shit. Hellseeker is like the same plot as Inferno, just done worse in like every conceivable way. Furthermore, you bring Ashley Lawrence back for what? This is totally undignified for Ashley. She's basically a glorified cameo. It's always nice to see her, but it just seems totally disrespectful to the character of Kirsty Cotton and to the actress, quite frankly. This movie's boring. This is the first one that I actually started to feel like, okay, this is kind of a piece of shit. Like, this isn't even well made. It's bad. Okay? It's really bad. And if there's someone out there that defends Hellseeker and says, no, you're actually not seeing the brilliance that is Hellseeker, please enlighten me, because I hate this movie. And I think it firmly belongs in Hell Isn't Hot Enough, personally. All right. Hellraiser Deader. The Seventh Circle of Hell. And that might surprise some of you guys, because I'll have more positive things to say about Deader than I will Inferno. But that's just because I prefer Deader to Inferno. Here's the thing. They have the same issues largely, though. The reason I prefer it to Inferno is because I really like Kari Wurr in this movie. I think she actually gives a pretty good performance. And for like 75 to 80% of this movie, I actually think it's a pretty interesting story. Sure, it's pretty low budget. It's not a great film, technically speaking, by any means. But I actually think there was like a big morsel of a good plot there. And somewhere along the way, they lost their way. And they lost their way when they decided we're going to make this a Hellraiser movie. Because just like Inferno, I don't think it's a good Hellraiser movie. I think the inclusion of the Cenobites doesn't really make much sense in this film. So it's in the Seventh Circle of Hell. Again, it's not terrible. I can watch Deader. And like I said, when I watch Deader, I honestly think to myself, man, I wish it would have just been like this original idea and story. And they didn't try to force this into being a Hellraiser movie, because that's the weakest stuff. But I think Deader's actually pretty okay for a straight to DVD movie. Hellraiser Hellworld. Okay. Now, this one is probably going to piss some people off. I'm putting it in the first circle of hell. Now, let me just say before y'all freak out, Hell on Earth is better. Just because they're in the same tier does not mean they are like one and the same. No. Hell on Earth is better. However, Hellworld is a super fun time. This movie is dumb fun in all the best ways. You get a young Henry Cavill in this movie, which is always nice to see. Love Henry Cavill. You get what is like the first attempt of them being like, what if Pinhead and the Cenobites were more like slashers? Does it work for these characters? Absolutely not. Is it fun to see the kind of what if? Yeah, it is. I don't think Hellworld is a movie that ever tried to take itself seriously. It very much lives in the universe that it lives in, and it just kind of rolls with that. But it's pretty fun. You know, someone lie to me and tell me that Hellworld's not fun. Someone tell me that you watch the movie and you just get bored to tears and you can't believe you wasted your time with it. I'm not going to believe you, but you can tell me. Oh, God. Okay. Okay. Hellraiser Revelations. Easily hell isn't hot enough. I mean, like, what do you say? You know, like, this is one of the worst horror films I've ever seen. Ever. Like, it's terrible. This isn't even a movie, you know? Like, this is a film school project. Really, what it was an attempt to keep the rights. They had to make something or the rights would lapse. That's really what this movie is. And it shows because this is about as low budget a piece of shit as you can get. No regard whatsoever for anything that came before it. Looks like shit, acted like shit. I mean, it's bad. Like, it's really bad. And that's, oh, yeah, I'll never watch it again. I own every Hellraiser movie, but I don't own that. And I'll never own it. I just won't because you're not a Hellraiser movie. You're not even Temu Hellraiser. You're like, I don't even know. What's worse than Temu? You don't belong. One of these things is not like the other. And it's Hellraiser Revelations. As much as I don't like Hellseeker, and oh, the hate I have for Hellseeker burns like 1,000 suns. But Revelations is worse. All right. Hellraiser Judgment. Now, before we rank this, I just want to say, Christian and I had the opportunity to interview Gary Tunnicliffe on the You Need a Horror podcast a couple years back, and Gary is a delight. This guy is a world-class makeup artist. He has all of the love and admiration and knowledge of this world that you could ask for. The fact that he was finally given the opportunity to write and direct a Hellraiser film after decades spent crafting some of the most iconic horror characters we've ever seen was just justice. It was poetic justice. I love the Auditor in this movie. I love the makeup designs for so many of these characters. I think that the recasting of Pinhead in this movie was actually okay. Not better than Doug Bradley, but okay. There's a lot I really liked about Judgment. However, Judgment does very much feel really, really small scale, like Revelations. More care, more knowledge, more love put into it, but it just feels kind of separated from the franchise as a whole. If Gary had been given more money, more to work with, you know, Doug Bradley, I think the Judgment could have been like a top tier Hellraiser film. But having said that, simply for the knowledge and love of the source material, for the actually pretty interesting story, inclusion of new characters that actually work, I'm going to go into the first circle of hell. It is not better than Hell on Earth either, just like Hellworld. I would never say that. But it doesn't belong in the pits because it's better than that. So, shout out, Gary. At least you got to make something respectable, though they still should have done better by you, personally, in my opinion. And then the last one in the Hellraiser franchise for now, but knowing Hellraiser, it will be for a really long time, sadly, is the 2022 reboot. And I'm putting this firmly into, oh, do I want to put it in the Hell Priest? Yeah, I'm going to put it in the Hell Priest. This is a great reboot. Like, this is how you do it. You don't hew too closely to what came before because it just seems like you're copying and you have nothing new to say. However, you also want to stay true enough to the source material and what came before so people that are familiar with that know what they're watching. This movie walks that line perfectly. I love this world. This is the best the world has been realized. When you get these like moving walls and you're seeing the labyrinth and Leviathan, it's gorgeous. Like Bruckner, he clearly understands this franchise. He clearly has a love for it. And I mean, it shows on screen. I honestly also think that if they're going to do another Hellraiser movie, and I really hope they do soon, you've got to go personally with Jamie Clayton as Pinhead again. I don't think there's any question. Jamie was fantastic in the role. Like the design is just different enough to where it's separated from what you came to know and love, so you're not like getting confused or feeling like they're unoriginal entirely, while also there's enough there for you to be like, okay, that's Pinhead. This is Hellraiser. Like I this is my comfort zone. I feel safe. I'm in my safe space. I just loved the design. I loved the world. I loved the performance. You don't really root all that much for your lead because she's a problematic lead. That's the point. And I think it works. There's so much about this movie and about this world that they were beginning to create that I just think is like, I have to have more. This is just everything I want to see. Now, people like my buddy Christian, and I've heard many people say over the years, like, well, it doesn't look as painful or as dirty as the previous movies. And I get that. It's the 2020s, guys. It's probably not going to. Modernizing a franchise that has a really bad reputation in the way that they did, making it this big budget, respectable spectacle of a film for Hellraiser, that's incredible. That is a feat in and of itself. This movie was great. They should have never dropped it on Hulu. It should have gone to theaters because I will always maintain it would have been successful, just like Evil Dead Rise. Not as successful, but it would have been successful. It had really good buzz. It was the number 3 most streamed thing on Hulu the week of its release. Like, they really missed an opportunity. 20th Century Fox has no idea what they're doing. Please give me a sequel to this. Please. And there you have it. Hellraiser, a franchise that is carried by 4 films, really. There's 4 at the bottom or near the bottom, and then there's a couple middling movies. Now, that's just my opinion, of course. Some of you guys may not agree, and that's fine. Some people will say, well, no, this movie is actually garbage, and that movie's garbage. That's the beauty of these tier lists. This is just my opinion, but I'm interested to hear yours. But I also do just want to say, I actually don't think Hellraiser is the gutter trash that so many people make it out to be. There's a lot to love about this franchise. And even in the weakest of movies, there's always something you can take from it. A cool creature design, a sick death, whatever it may be. There's always something there to grab onto. There's always a morsel. So, for me, I love Hellraiser. And I feel like it is always so unfairly treated. And it is finally about time that Hellraiser gets its due. And with that, gets a sequel to the freaking amazing reboot. But the question's for you guys. How would you rank on a tier of the tier list that I gave you? The tiers, I should say. Where would you put the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies? Where would you put the Hellraiser movies? Do you agree with me or disagree? Whatever it is, I want to hear down below in the comment section, so please let me know. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this. As I've said in the comments to so many of you, these are super fun to do. I love doing these. When you guys started asking for more of them, I was honestly relieved because I was like, I wanted to do more of these, but I didn't want to be giving people content they didn't want to see. But they're so fun that I wanted to do more. And you guys are really digging it. So I'm thinking about, with the next one, Evil Dead, Scream, and a third franchise in there. But I haven't decided yet. So sound off below and let me know, guys. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like on it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In.